Welcome to As a Service, Andy. So today we're going to kind of recap a little bit of what happened last week, and there have been some questions and some different things that have come about since then. Lots of people who really like the professional environment, and it is much better than my grainy environment right now, and the background is better, and obviously having a guest is better, which we've got some really good questions coming your way when it comes to what does it mean to be as a service. So the first thing that I want to make sure that everybody understands is you need to make a list of what your needs are, right? So Sia last week talked a little bit about what it means to be OPEX or CAPEX, and if you don't understand that, obviously you can Google search it, but it's just the way you pay. Do you pay all up front or do you pay over time? And the reason that's important is the way that accounting deals with that, the way that finances deals with that, the way that taxes are done with it, the way that operational expenses are done. There's a whole bunch of reasons why you go one versus the other. So typically, not always, but an OPEX model makes the most sense. But some people are budgeted and they're funded in a CAPEX way, and so that has to be taken into consideration. So that should be something on your list. You need to just start making a list. These are the things that are important. And when you do that, then you'll understand if as a service is going to be right for you. So is this something that's going to be viable for my business to be utilizing consuming software this way? Now ultimately I'm of the belief, obviously because I do this program, that it really is the wave of the future, but there are still things that need to be worked out, and there are still ways that you can perform a consumption model that is back, for lack of a better term, retro. So retro software consumption model. Oh, I like that word. But the bottom line is, and by the way, a term was shared with me the other day, and I absolutely love this term. So I'm pulling out my digital pen here because I just wanted to make sure that I checked my notes on this. But it's the way that you consume it. So there is this whole idea of a consumable approach, right? And analysts love this term. It's a new term that is being used across the board, and it's how do I take it in? So start with your list, right? We've talked about this a little bit before, but financial should be one of the highest things on your list. Is how does my accounting department want to consume this? How can I budget for it? And so there you have that. I guess before that and higher than that is what is the problem that you're trying to solve? So often, you know, we're going to have a whole program on this, but so often we get into conversations with customers and they ask a question. And it's good that they ask that question, but there's almost a why are you asking that question that needs to go back, right? Answer a question with a question. My buddy Will and I were talking about this. I'm going to have him on the program to discuss why you ask that question. So we'll get to that at a later program. But the important thing is what problem is it that you're trying to solve first, right? So we understand what problem is we're trying to solve. What is my consumption model for this particular piece of software to solve whatever problem, right? So everything rolls up into solving that problem. What are the most important things to me in solving that problem? What things need to be addressed and what is my priority? Everything, I know I'm a product guy, so I get way into this, but everything is about prioritization. What are the things that are most important to me? Because items 1 and 3 on your list might be good enough to have items 1 and 3 and not, and maybe you skip over number 2, but then you have to ask yourself, should that be even number 2 then? If 1 and 3 are that important, if you can get 2 out of 3, the bottom line is you put a value to every priority that you do, and you should be able to mathematically equate that. So, what's my problem? How do I want to financially consume it? What is the list of items that fulfill that problem need, right? So, what's my criteria? Similar to what you would do with some type of a request for information or request for proposal, where you would list that out. But this should be you should keep this, right? Keep it in a digital spreadsheet, keep it in OneNote, keep it wherever so that you have access to checking those off. You go through, you do your check boxes, but then you equate it that each one of those line items should have a value associated with it. This means just 1 out of 10 is fine. Even if you want to go as simplistic as 1 out of 5, give it a value. Because as you score each thing, you're going to give it a value of 5 and 4 and 3 and 5 and 1 and 1 and 5. You're going to then add that up at the end. And it may not be your decision making criteria, but it'll at least point you in the right direction. At least it gives you a baseline. And a lot of times when you're doing this, you need justification, and you need hard justification for why you went this particular direction, why you did something in this regard, why you think that this model is best. Because you've got that problem. Now you're looking at the criteria it takes to solve that problem. And then you're going to have to justify that. You know, it's one of the most crazy things that I talk about all the time, being in product management. A lot of people, claim to be product managers, and they rightfully can, I guess, claim to be whatever they want. But there is a criteria. There's almost an unsaid understanding amongst product managers about what is done, and a lot of people think it's just user stories and user requirements on a regular basis. Handing that over to development, telling them the what and the why, not ever the how. You don't tell them how to do it. Just so you know, telling developers how to do stuff is a bad thing, but they think that that's the case. The reality is they need to get an understanding like I'm talking about here in your decision-making process. They're doing that validation because they're trying to get buy-in. Internal stakeholder buy-in is that first stage, that first step. And depending on your position, you might be getting internal stakeholder buy-in for a lot of different things. But let's just keep it to software for the moment and how you consume it. Or let's just keep it to as a service items and how you consume them. Because that's the more general sense of which we're talking about here. Because internal stakeholder buy-in is just huge. So in order to justify that, it's always nice to have those mathematical equations to go, this was my scoring sheet. And I know it's tedious, it's cumbersome. You're building another Excel spreadsheet for another person or another thing that builds onto a presentation. I get it. I totally get it. But it helps and it works and it will help you. And it helps from a visualization standpoint. Recently I just was in a conversation where somebody wanted to do a roadmap presentation, and I listened to the roadmap presentation and there was absolutely no visualization whatsoever. And I left with going, that's not the right way that you do roadmap presentations. I can't just verbally tell you my roadmap. No matter how secure it is, no matter how secretive it is, you just can't do that. You've got to have a visualization. Same goes with your evaluation of any as a service. You should have some type of visual representation. And there's so many good tools out there. I mess around with a ton of them. I love Lucid Chart and Lucid Spark. They're both fantastic. It just helps me mind map things. And so as I talk and as I think about things, I'm just dragging things around to how it's going to connect and what it's going to do in that regard. And then I got a visual representation, at the very least for me, but likely I'm going to be sharing that with someone else. So if you keep yourself a little spreadsheet that just says, hey, these are the things that are most important. It reminds you to ask the vendor the question, can it do this? How does it do this, right? And as long as that meets your why, right? So, by the way, I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan, and then I saw a video the other day. Simon, there are points I thought I ubiquitously agreed with you on everything. I don't agree with Simon Sinek on everything, so I don't. But that's neither here nor there. He's fantastic for the vast majority of the stuff that he puts out, and you can't go wrong following him. So it's really good. But everything should roll up into your why, right? So part of this is me rambling here, but you've got to roll everything up into your why. So you got your criteria, roll them up into your why, and now you have a decision-making process that is sound and succinct. And all too often, I watch both customers and partners that I work with on a regular basis. They don't do this. They're not checking the boxes. They don't go down. I've watched countless times where we've done a demo or a demo has been done to us, and somebody's going through what they're trying to get us to consume, or I'm trying to get them to consume, and I'm watching them and I'm going, are they taking notes, or are they just taking mental notes? Because mental notes can be forgotten, and then you're only left with an impression and you don't have the factual basis. So just another little tidbit for Friday afternoon. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and thanks for joining us on Andy as a Service. Take care now.